Welcome to the Wtf Show podcast from Bangkok, Thailand. Presented by Vimol Kogar. Tune in to get your dose of weekly verbal Red Bull.
Welcome one and all to the WTF Show today. We have a young man in the FNB business today as our guest. Welcome, Saneh Madan.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Saneh, tell me a little bit about how you started your work. Where did you go to school, and how did you come about starting the business you did?
So I actually have been in the F&B business since 2008, towards the tail end of 2008 into early 2009. Prior to that, I was a student at Chulalongkorn University, where I graduated in international business management. And I went to Harrow International School for my A-levels. And before that, I spent my entire education actually at Teuscher International School. My family background, when my dad was still alive, was in the garment business. We had a small factory and we used to primarily supply to our customers in the US. But it was not something I was interested in continuing. And I was very upfront and honest with my dad about my intentions and about the direction I wanted to take. And having always loved food without actually knowing how difficult the F&B business is, it was a fascinating prospect for me. So I told him I'd like to start something in the F&B business. And we still are. I still retain that part of my dad. I'm pretty cautious. And we wanted to set up something that would collectively give us the best possible start. And we recognized that maybe franchising would be the way to go. And the easiest franchise that anybody could actually become a franchisee for at that time was Subway. So that is actually our foray into the F&B business. That's how it started.
So I'm guessing that the subways that I've enjoyed in Sukhumvit Road, Bangkok, and other places in Bangkok were partly your doing. Is that right?
Quite possibly. In our heyday with the Subway business, we had 6 outlets across Bangkok. Most of them were concentrated around Sukhumvit areas that were near the BTS stations.
And how have you moved on from Subway?
So we actually sold our Subway business in 2017, lock, stock, and barrel, to an investor. The decision was made actually a few years earlier. It was about finding the right buyer at the right price. The reasons were quite many, actually. At that time, at least, they have since in Thailand completely, done up their business properly now. So the new guys who are in charge for Subway now in Thailand have done a great job. But when I was still with Subway, there were a few issues globally as well. The founder had just passed away in 2016, if I'm not wrong, and the brand had taken multiple hits across the board with so many scandals that were brewing up. So we got a buyer at a good price, and we decided that it's a good time to sell. And we went ahead and did that.
And how have you moved on from Subway? What do you do now?
We've always had our business in Singapore, even when we had Subway. I started that business with my partner in Singapore. We've had Wabi Sabi company in Singapore since 2015, and that's still ongoing. We represent a few brands from Japan and Hong Kong over there in Singapore and Malaysia. And in 2017, as luck would have it, right after I decided to sell the Subway business, an opportunity actually fell into my lap. I've been working with my partner over here for many years, but not in the F&B space. We did a lot of trading together, and he had a few contacts in Hong Kong who were interested to bring an F&B brand from Hong Kong to Thailand, and that brand was Cali-Mex. And so he brought this up to me and asked me if I'd be interested.
So could you just quickly explain what is Cali-Mex, please?
Definitely. Cali-Mex is predominantly Tex-Mex franchise from Hong Kong with a Californian vibe and a few menu items that are not Tex-Mex that you would associate with Californian cuisine. We have a vegan menu as well, a part of it. So that is the general idea of what the business does. So it's a Mexican joint with a diner kind of menu. And so in 2018, we launched our first Cali-Mex in Sukhumvit Soi 22. And before COVID, we had 5 outlets.
Okay, I don't want to go to a space that's sort of a sensitive space, but obviously COVID having hit the market and Thailand being a country full of tourists, now that we've lost our tourists, we've lost our clients, and Cali-Mex, I'm guessing, must have taken a hit.
There's no mincing words there, definitely. We were on very shaky ground. At least until March, April last year, things were looking very, very bleak. That's not to say that we are out of the woods, far from it, but adversity, gives you an opportunity to reconsider what it is you're doing. Luckily for us, we had made some really correct, very good decisions early in the setup of the business. A lot of restaurants and restaurant chains have individual store kitchens. And while that may work for many different cuisines, sometimes it lends itself to inconsistency across, different even shifts in the restaurant, not just different branches. For us, we started with the central kitchen model. So the central kitchen, we built state-of-the-art central kitchen with FDA, GMP, and HACCP certification. And the idea is that most of the heavy-duty cooking, the heavy lifting, is done out of one centralized kitchen where our team of chefs have absolute control over the quality of the food. And everything that is made over there is portion-packed and delivered daily to each of our outlets. What that allows us to do is to consistently deliver quality products and quality food and correct portions, And then we can focus on service because the food is taken care of.
Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about the intangible challenges during this time, because a lot of people, the point that you're losing your negative cash flow, you're losing money, that's obvious to everyone else. But how is it that you stay focused? How is it that the Thai word kam lang chai, how is it that you strive to be passionate about your work every day and keep yourself on the ball and look for new pathways for income generation and revenue generation?
So the new pathways for income generation and revenue generation tie back to what I was talking about earlier with having a central kitchen. I will come to that in a bit, but your question about focus and having kamlang chai, having the courage to go on. So yes, that intangible, it comes from within, but also around you. I am nobody without my team. I'm nobody without my business partners. I'm nobody without my brother who works with me. But by that extension, I'm nobody without my family who give me support. They may not work directly in the office with me. They may not go to the restaurants and make sure everything is, up to scratch, everything is being done properly. But when I come back home and I talk to them, even about anything that doesn't have to be related to work, they enable me, they uplift me. And that's very important. Not to mention the fact that this is my 11th year in the F&B business. Nobody, I can say, has seen times like COVID before, but I've seen a lot of lean times. I've seen good times as well. So I've come through that, haven't I? I will get through this. And right now, I'm actually in a much better position because, and that's the asset I want to talk about, I have this central kitchen that I can now use and leverage to not only cook food from my restaurants, which I've since shut 2 of them down, but I can cook for other restaurants as well. And that's what we've been doing. So we have looked around, taken stock of what we have, what we should do with what we have and what we can. And we just came up with this ghost kitchen concept. And we've been cooking for a few restaurants now. We make food for Starbucks, for example.
Oh, so you're a caterer to Starbucks as well?
In a way, yes. We worked with them actually on a project. They launched their plant-based menu last year. It was a global initiative. And so they reached out to us. We are their supplier for Beyond Meat, and because we've been buying from those guys as well. And so they came to our kitchen, we had a discussion, and they just gave us the recipes and we made food for them. We use our proprietary freezing technology, and we send the food to them, and then they just process it.
Tell me about your work in Singapore and Malaysia. You mentioned something about your partnership there.
Yes, and it's a great exercise in not giving up hope, just to re-emphasize. So I was mentioning some lean times earlier, and lessons learned now, but I had launched this brand in Thailand called Teuscher chocolates. They're this fantastic Swiss chocolatier from Zurich. They've been around since 1932. Their signature chocolate actually is the champagne truffle made with Dom Perignon. So it's absolutely, fantastic. I told you I'm an Epicurean. I love good things. I love the finer things in life. And so when I came across this brand, I just felt that I needed to bring it here. I was still very young back then. I think it was in 2012 that I started on this project, 2012, 2013, I embarked on it. So a relative novice in this industry. I still learn a lot every day, and I never stop doing that. But I jumped the gun, and I made a lot of mistakes along the way. The product was never a mistake. But with that opportunity, I met my friend in Singapore, and we decided, let's take this brand to Singapore as well. I had a really good rapport with the brand founders in Zurich, and they were incredibly supportive. Without a track record, they allowed me the rights for Singapore also, without me even living there. But my partner is a top-notch F&B operator. He's really, really fantastic. And so we launched Teuscher in Thailand, in Bangkok in 2014 with Central Embassy. Long story short, that unfortunately didn't quite pan out. But we also did the same in Singapore in 2015, and culmination of different, incidents and unfortunate situations made that business also not really profitable. But from that experience and from having that credential, we were able to acquire the rights for a Japanese cheesecake brand, and we've not looked back since. With that brand came success in sales, definitely, but also that little bit of confidence that we made some mistakes. We're not going to shy away from that. But, what happened was also a product of circumstances.
Our young audience out there maybe haven't gone through the school of hard knocks like you have. And each time that you invest, say, $250,000 and you lose, say, $20,000 a month, and then you spend X amount of money actually closing down the business, that is a lot of pain. And obviously, like you said, there are the wins and there are the losers. How do you go through the pain of closing down a business and sort of living with yourself with the fact that, you made these mistakes, and sometimes you make consecutive mistakes?
So I could be callous and say, take your chops and move on. But I will be lying to everybody out there if I say that it didn't weigh down on me very, very heavily. First of all, I never look at it as my money. I've always, even my brother, we have always looked at it as this is my dad's money that he worked so hard to earn for my mom. Yes, she loves us. She's generous. She went along with us on this journey, and we lost money. I definitely lost money with Teuscher, and I beat myself up actually about that for a very long time. I kind of slinkered away from the spotlight, and you start questioning every single thing you do. But there comes a time, and I'll jump ahead a little bit because I know what you're going to ask. But yeah, so that was one of my WTF moments. Just one day it came to me and said, hey, guilt is such a useless emotion. It really is. Because not only have you made that mistake and suffered the consequences, every time you feel guilty, you're suffering those same consequences and that same emotion again and again and again.
So you move forward.
There's nothing else you can do but.
Right.
You make adjustments. You learn from it. Whenever anybody asks me about, what's made me today, my successes or my failures, I would say a combination of both, definitely, but more so my failures. They are harsh teachers, but the lessons stick with you very, very strongly. I've not had an MBA, but it feels like I may have had an MBA, an expensive one, but what else can I do? It's in the past. I can only look forward.
So what would you advise to somebody who's a young person who's planning to use his mom's and dad's money to bring in a brand from Europe to Asia? And some of these brands are untested, whether it's an apparel brand or a food brand or whatever it is. How does one go about testing the market and trying to make sure that the brand is suitable for Asia?
There are two aspects to this question I'd like to address. So the first aspect is just on a logical viewpoint, and the second is a bit more philosophical. So the first aspect about just being a bit more logical is, listen, there's no substitute for hard work. There's no substitute for doing proper research as much as you can afford to do. The time and the energy spent doing that is important. So do consider that. Look around you. What does the market require? Understand that first. Find a pain point or a niche in the market or a gap that you feel exists, and then work around that and build from there. So, you could, and people do, they pay big bucks for brands because they're like, oh, you know what, I'll get the systems and everything, and that makes sense. But one major reason for buying any brand as a franchise is that the brand is well known. If it isn't, then you're not only paying franchise fees plus royalty, but you're also paying a lot in marketing for that brand. But if the brand is already well known, you still have to market, but half your work is already done. So that's how we operate as well, especially out of Singapore. We actively seek out brands. And again, certain brands are maybe massive in Sweden, for example. That does not mean it has a fan following over here or in Singapore. So that is quite important as well. So it comes to a point where you do all your research. You fly out there. You copy every single aspect you can of that brand without taking the brand itself. As long as it's not proprietary, you're not breaking any rules. If you are convinced that that concept will work, then the concept is more important than the brand. As far as taking your, let's say, parents' money is concerned, be responsible about it as well. It's their money. It's their hard-earned money. And don't look at it as though you're the owner of that business. Maybe that will give you that little bit of drive because you're responsible for somebody else's investment.
You're sort of a custodian.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. And when you do that, then hopefully you're not reckless with somebody else's money.
What's the most challenging moment you've had in the last 5 years with maybe pre-COVID and post-COVID in terms of running the food business?
There's always a mini crisis just around the corner with the F&B business. It's a ridiculously competitive industry. I would say that more than 90% of F&B businesses do not survive 3 years. So you can well imagine. And in countries like Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia, barriers to entry are very low. Anybody with a half-decent idea can technically open a restaurant or find a way to enter this business. It can be a truck, it can be a delivery service. What do you need? Certain kitchen equipment, and then you can get going. Thailand, it's so easy. And so for me, Teuscher in Thailand was a difficult moment, and it's in the past now. But even in Singapore, for example, we've had incidents where you have certain competitors who actively try to sabotage you because they're worried.
Is that generally done online, or how does it work?
Yes, it's mostly done online. There are a lot of keyboard warriors out there. I don't want to be harping on like some conspiracy theorist nut, but yeah, there are a lot of these ploys that certain companies, competitors can use against you. There's no particular, pre-COVID, there's no one particular extremely challenging moment I've had, except to say that certain things can grind you down over time, and every day just saying, I got this. I have faith. I believe in my team. I believe in myself. Just soldier on. Just continue doing what you're doing. Introspect. Analyze what you're doing, understand why you did what you did, what you could have done better, what you did wrong, and take those lessons and move on.
Okay, tell me a little bit about how maybe your faith has helped you go through these tough times. Do you feel that some spiritualism has helped you?
I believe so. Not maybe in the stricter sense of the word God has helped me, or there has been a miracle that happened in some particular given moment of my life. No, I would not say that. But the relationships you build with people. So I've always very strongly believed that there's no self-made man. It's not possible, right? Because in any given situation, you're interacting with other human beings. I feed off your energy. You feed off my energy. And I'm not sounding like some, new age kind of, I'm not propagating any of such stuff, but it is the truth. And so how you react to me or what you say to me can and does influence my state of mind. And then from there, what I go and do, right, there is that little bit of link that you have already formed. So for me, just keeping myself in the right company and getting the right vibes and energy from the people I talk to, I associate with, I am friends with, that in itself is kind of that spiritual connection that I have.
How do you plan to grow your business in the next 5 years?
Well, that's a difficult question because we don't know what a few things. This whole misinformation, disinformation age, what's happening around the world, and COVID will, influence the zeitgeist. And it's difficult to plan in detail without actually seeing what transpires in due course of time. But the new normal will create new businesses. And so in Thailand, at least, the ghost kitchen concept is something that we want to develop further. So, we've banking on the success we've had with Starbucks, we have onboarded a few other clients for whom we are cooking. Again, this was something that is completely new to us because every restaurant, every kind of F&B operator has their own SOPs. So bringing that in and then tweaking that according to our standard of operations, requires active monitoring, at least initially. But it's hard, which is why it's good, because not everybody can do it. So that is something we want to build towards. And we have actually launched, apart from Cali-Mex, we've launched our own delivery brands as well. Just nothing, no shop front, just for the sake of delivery. I mean,
we have a kitchen. Do you want to give an example of that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So we have Pizza Squared that we've launched from our kitchen here in Bangkok. It's quite nifty, actually. It's square-shaped pizza. We kind of realized that, first of all, a lot of people are, staying at home, working from home. Pizza is always a good, meal to have when you're celebrating or when you're bored, you have nothing to do, let's eat pizza. But how do we differentiate ourselves? And again, this is by no means an extremely unique idea, but it doesn't have to be unique to work. Sometimes you can take something that already exists and do it better. Either make it tastier, make it cheaper, market it better. So for us, we realized that we wanted to go with the square-shaped pizza because a lot of pizza pies are round, right? They're pies. And let's say, for example, you're ordering a pepperoni pizza. And so it depends on how it is sliced, but I have often been really cheesed off, pun intended, when I've gone, to a pizza party and they're really, they have sliced it really thinly and there's no pepperoni on my slice.
Right.
That happens. Right. And so we're like, how many people feel that way? And we found out that, quite a few people actually don't think about it, but it's there. So we made a square-shaped pizza where there's a party on every slice.
There you go.
Yeah, fair and square. We had some fun doing it. I enjoy wordplay. So for me, this was good. This was fun.
Fair and square indeed, Saneh. Saneh, what else are you planning to do in the future?
A few things. Not necessarily in the F&B space. Like I told you earlier, I have done trading before. I don't say no to business opportunities. Yeah, it's not that I always invest in business, even if somebody came to me. I'm quite lucky that my partners are also very well traveled with a lot of overseas connections, and myself included. I did a brief stint in San Jose State as an exchange student, so I have a lot of friends from my time over there. So whenever anybody is looking for any business opportunity, like I mentioned to you when we were talking earlier about Kodak, that also came through my business partner over here. We didn't invest in it, but we helped secure distribution rights for Kodak in Thailand for a while. The fact that it didn't pan out is another story altogether. But I learned a lot in that time. And last year, when things were a bit quiet on the F&B front and everybody was chasing nitrile gloves, I got in on the act.
They were chasing,
nitrile gloves? Right. That was all the rage of 2020.
That's right.
Apart from COVID, of course. And I got in on that action. Did I close a deal? Nothing. I wouldn't call it wasted. I spent 5 months actually trying to, in vain, secure deals, but I learned so much and I have so many fun stories to tell you about, or anybody actually, about my experience trying to chase phantom glove deals.
So these trials and tribulations, they're actually a huge building block for our audience out there who basically are going into the job world and cannot find jobs. This time in history is a tough time in history, and would you have any advice for people who've just graduated and are looking for work in the F&B sector? Or even to start up their own startup?
Okay, So, hey, whoever is listening out there, if it's F&B you are looking at, do remember it's an incredibly difficult industry to be entering at any given time, not just, in the new normal times or because of COVID. But if you have the passion for it, which is quite important, and you work hard and you're service-minded, then you may have a shot. Whereas actually going out there and securing a job is concerned, I may not be the best person to offer advice on this matter, because I've actually never had a job that somebody else has hired me to do anything. But I know what I look for when I recruit people, and I look for sincerity. I look for the drive to learn, to progress in your career, and I find that's really important, because one instance, I had this highly capable staff at my Subway when I had Subway at MBK on the 7th floor, and she was really, really good at her job. And I actually went up to her and I said, "Hey, you're very, very good at what you do. I want to give you a pay bump and make you store manager." And she said, "No, I'm actually very happy where I am," and that is fine, to each their own. But for me, considering how capable she was, she could have gone really far, but maybe that wasn't her passion, and that's okay. So listen, if you're passionate and you learn and you try your hardest, you don't have to be a stalwart at all. We'll teach you, whoever it is that's hiring you, especially if you're fresh from graduating. You don't have to conquer the world out there. Take baby steps. They'll guide you along the way. As far as starting a new F&B business is concerned, then what I had mentioned earlier, it's do your research. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how some of the audience out there can reach your Square Pizza brand in terms of, are you available on FB, IG? Do we call in for an order? How does it work?
Okay, you can order with us on Foodpanda.
Okay.
So my company, we are exclusive with Foodpanda.
Okay.
For all our deliveries. So it's on Foodpanda. You could do that.
Okay, so before we go, Saneh, a couple of things. One is, at the end of 2021, we will have the WTF Youth of the Year. So you will get a chance to nominate and to vote for the Youth of the Year at our grand party at the end of this year. So we hope you will be there. And the second thing is, you get to nominate another guest for the show at a future time. So we hope you will help us in
Most
that
definitely.
endeavor.
Yeah.
I'm going to, as usual, give you the last word in terms of telling our audience a little bit about, you've already explained to us that the passions that you need and the perseverance that you need. But maybe our audience don't know, you actually started your career very young, at the age of 22, if I'm not wrong. You entered the working environment. And I think, if I may, I think you've matured a little bit faster than the rest, because you needed to take the helm of your business. What's the lasting lesson you could tell everybody about this? And then we will say goodbye.
Okay. So, see, first of all, I will be the last person to claim to have all the answers. I do not. And that is actually, in its own way, really beautiful, because I get to learn every single day. So what I say today, hopefully I've come to a point where I find that it sticks with me throughout, for my the entirety of my work journey or my career. But tomorrow I may find something else that works better. But yes, my journey towards, let's say, maturity has been fast-tracked by a combination of different factors and circumstances. The one thing that sticks out is, for me, that has worked for me, is discipline. That's a very important and somehow often overlooked factor, because it sounds a bit boring. It's not passion, it's not drive. Those are nice words. I'm passionate, I'm driven, I'm creative, I have great ideas. Fantastic. You need that. But it needs to be underpinned by discipline. And I am 34. And so maybe the listeners out there are a bit younger, and so I'm a little bit more experienced than them. I don't make claims to be any smarter than them. So what's worked for me is, hey, you know what, you guys out there, you're going to excel and have a lot more, knowledge in a few other worldly things, but certain things that come with experience, like discipline. I actively stick to my routine every day. I'm not a stickler for, doing it for the sake of doing it. I do sometimes just take a day off because I feel like it, but I don't waste that day by feeling guilty for having taken my day off. And I'm pretty organized. My brother and I especially, we are systems guys. We've been doing franchise since forever. And so part of being a systems guy is also doing things in a systematic manner, and that takes discipline. So whatever you decide to do it with discipline.
Thank you so much, Saneh Madan, for joining us today at the WTF Show. We look forward to welcoming you again.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to speak to everybody out there. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Okay, goodbye and good luck to everyone, and we'll see you next week.
That's it from the WTF Show. Vimol and the team from WTF Show would like to thank all our sponsors. Tune in next week for another great gig with people making a difference to your future. For advertising spots, go to the WTF Show IG page and get more info, or contact Vimol at 6681 616 5987.